The recording begins with static. Then breathing. Heavy, controlled, deliberate. I can hear them. 3 of them. Maybe 4. Moving through the underbrush about 200 yards east of my position. They're trying to be quiet, but humans always give themselves away. The crunch of synthetic fabric against bark. The metallic click of a rifle safety being disengaged. The sharp, chemical smell of their deodorant cutting through the natural rot of the forest floor. They think they're hunting me. They have no idea I've been watching them since they parked their truck at the logging road 4 hours ago. The wind shifts. Southwest now. Good. It carries their scent away from where I'm crouched behind a fallen cedar, its trunk thick enough to hide my bulk. I can taste their adrenaline in the air, that particular flavor of excitement mixed with fear that humans get when they're doing something they know might kill them. One of them whispers. His voice trembles. Did you see that? Over by the ridge? Shut up, Kenny. Kenny doesn't shut up. I swear to God, man, something moved. I said shut up. A flashlight beam cuts through the darkness. It sweeps left, then right, passing 3 feet above my head. Amateur hour. They're looking for eyes that reflect light, like deer. Like animals. I am not an animal. The beam moves away. I exhale slowly through my nose, letting the tension bleed out of my shoulders. The temperature dropped 20 minutes ago, down to maybe 38 degrees. Rain coming. That'll help. Rain makes humans stupid, makes them focus on staying dry instead of staying alert. I've done this dance 1,000 times. Maybe more. I've lost count. The leader, older, methodical, wearing military surplus gear, signals the others forward. They move in a loose formation, sweeping the area where they think they saw movement. Where I let them see movement. An old trick. Snap a branch 60 yards from where you actually are, let them investigate nothing while you slip away into the dark. But tonight I don't slip away. Tonight I stay. I watch. Because something's different this time. These men aren't weekend warriors with beer guts and borrowed rifles. Their equipment is too good. Their movements too practiced. And they're not looking for a story to tell at a bar. They're looking to collect. Kenny stumbles over a root. He catches himself but his rifle clatters against his belt. The leader wheels on him with such venom that even I can feel it from here. You might as well be ringing a dinner bell, you dumb. The woods go silent. Not the comfortable silence of night. The other kind. The kind that happens when every living thing in a half-mile radius suddenly decides to hold its breath. The leader knows what this means. I can see it in the way his shoulders go rigid, the way his head tilts, listening. He's done this before. He knows that when the forest goes quiet, something apex has entered the equation. Fall back, he whispers. Slow. Together. But Kenny panics. Of course he does. They always panic. He runs. The leader hisses something sharp and profane, but Kenny is already crashing through the undergrowth like a wounded elk, all subtlety abandoned. The other 2 hesitate, then follow, their tactical discipline evaporating in the face of raw fear. I could stop them. Could step out onto the path, let them see what they came for. Let them understand, in their final moments, exactly what hunted them back. But I don't. Because I'm not the monster in this story. They are. I watch them run until the sounds fade, until the forest begins to breathe again, the tentative chirp of a cricket, the rustle of a mouse in the leaf litter, the distant call of an owl asking if the danger has passed. Then I move. Silent. Invisible. The way I've moved for longer than their grandfathers were alive. Behind me, I leave no footprints. Just questions. Day 4683 without being believed. But hey, at least the camera footage is always blurry. Let me tell you what I am. Not what they say I am. Not the legend, not the myth, not the grainy photograph that definitely shows something or could be a guy in a suit. What I actually am. My kind, because yes, there were others once, though that's a story for later. We don't have a name for ourselves. Names are human constructs. We have awareness, identity, but no word for it. I've heard your people call us Sasquatch, Bigfoot, skunk ape, Yeti, Grassman, the old man of the woods. You have 47 different names for us across your cultures and continents. We have none. For the sake of this recording, yes, this is a recording, we'll get to how that works in a moment. Call me what you want. Bigfoot is fine. It's reductive and anatomically inaccurate, but so is calling a blue whale a fish, and you people did that for centuries. I stand approximately 8 feet, 4 inches tall. I weigh somewhere around 630 pounds, though that fluctuates seasonally. My body is covered in dark brown hair, thicker at the shoulders and back, thinner at the extremities. I have forward-facing eyes with excellent depth perception. I am an apex predator that became something else, an apex hider. I live in the North Cascade Mountains, primarily in a 700 square mile territory that spans from the Canadian border down through the most remote sections of old-growth forest your government hasn't clear-cut yet. I move seasonally, following food sources and avoiding human encroachment, which gets harder every year. I am not the last of my kind. But we are close. The humans discovered us, or rather, began talking about us, in earnest around 1958. That's when a man named Jerry Crew found footprints at a construction site in Northern California and made plaster casts. The newspaper called it Bigfoot. Your fascination began in earnest. But we've been hiding from you much longer than that. Lewis and Clark wrote about us in 1805, though those journals were edited. Thomas Jefferson received a report about large, hairy men seen in the Virginia wilderness in 1784. Native Americans have stories going back 10,000 years, and those, at least, get closer to the truth. We are not apes. We are not undiscovered primates. We are what you almost became. I know what you're thinking. How is he speaking English? How is he making this recording? How is something that supposedly lives in caves and eats raw salmon capable of complex language? The answer is simple: I learned. I've spent 217 years, yes, we live longer than you, another fun fact for the cryptozoology forums, observing human beings. I've watched your settlements expand from dirt roads to highways. I've seen your technology evolve from oil lanterns to drones. I've listened to thousands of hours of your conversations, your music, your movies, your arguments. I taught myself to understand English by listening to hunters. Then loggers. Then hikers playing music from portable speakers. Then, in recent years, podcasters who wander into the deep woods recording their inane thoughts about true crime and conspiracy theories. You'd be amazed what you can learn when everyone assumes you're too stupid to be listening. I found this recording device, this old digital voice recorder, in 2019. A paranormal investigator dropped it while running away from what he thought was me. It was actually a bear, but I appreciate him leaving behind the technology. I figured out how to use it by watching YouTube videos. Yes. YouTube. You left a laptop at a campsite in 2021. Battery was at 47%. I watched 17 hours of content before it died. Learned how to work the recorder, how batteries function, how to preserve files. Then I hid the recorder in a cache with other items I've collected over the years: human tools, books, maps, a broken compass, a field guide to Pacific Northwest flora. Things that might help me understand the creatures that keep trying to prove I exist. This recording will be my testimony. My confession. My side of the story. Because here's the truth they never tell: I don't want to be found. I've spent my entire existence avoiding you. Every single day is a carefully orchestrated disappearing act. I know where your trail cameras are. I know the patterns of your hiking groups. I know which seasons bring the hunters and which bring the families with their shrieking children and their goddamn Bluetooth speakers playing top 40 hits from 2018. Day 14 without seeing a human. I was starting to miss the smell of gasoline and fear. Also, weirdly, Instagram influencers shouting at their phones. The forest gets quiet. The myths about me are 90% wrong. I don't kidnap people. I don't eat humans. I've never attacked a hiker unprovoked. The screams people report. That's how we communicate across distances. It sounds scary to you because it's not made for your ears. The blurry photographs? Intentional. We know when we're being filmed. We know how to move in ways that make images unclear. Pattern disruption is a survival skill. The missing people? Not us. Sometimes humans just get lost. Your species has a fatal combination of overconfidence and poor navigational skills. Do you know how many times I've watched someone wander in circles for hours, insisting they know which way is north? 37 times. I counted. I've saved 12 of them by leaving stick formations that subconsciously guide them back toward trails. They never notice. They just feel lucky they found their way. You're welcome. But lately, the last 5 years, maybe 6, something has changed. The hunters are getting more sophisticated. The technology is advancing faster than I can adapt. The forests are shrinking. And the men who come now don't come with curiosity. They come with purpose. Corporate purpose. Which brings me to why I'm making this recording. Why I'm breaking 2 centuries of silence. Because 3 weeks ago, I found something in the woods. Something that suggests this game of hide-and-seek is about to end. And not in my favor. It started with the helicopters. Not the tourist choppers that buzz the peaks every summer, cameras pressed against windows by people hoping to spot wildlife from 1,000 feet up. These were different. Low-flying. Deliberate. Flying grid patterns over the deepest sections of the forest, the places marked roadless on maps, where even experienced hikers don't venture. I first noticed them on October 3rd. The sound came just after dawn, that distinctive thump-thump-thump of rotor blades cutting through morning air. I was 2 miles from my primary shelter, a cave system tucked into a granite outcropping that's hidden behind a waterfall. Invisible from above. Invisible from the ground unless you know exactly where to look. I dropped into a crouch beneath a stand of old-growth Douglas firs, their canopy thick enough to break up thermal signatures. Yes, I know about thermal imaging. I learned about it the same way I learned about most human technology, by watching you use it against me. The helicopter made 3 passes. Same altitude. Same speed. A white and green Bell 407, civilian markings, but the equipment mounted beneath the fuselage was pure military. FLIR sensors. High-resolution cameras. Something else I didn't recognize, looked like a long-range microphone array. They were hunting. But this wasn't sport. This was science. The chopper moved north, following the ridge line. I waited until the sound faded completely, then another 30 minutes past that. Then I moved. I needed to know what they were doing. Tracking humans is easy. They leave trails like slugs leave slime, disturbed earth, broken branches, discarded trash, chemical scents that hang in the air for hours. I followed the helicopter's flight path from the ground, moving through terrain too steep and dense for vehicles, too remote for foot traffic. 7 miles in, I found the first sensor. It was mounted 20 feet up a western hemlock, camouflaged behind bark-textured polymer casing. Solar panel on top. Antenna array. Red LED blinking once every 5 seconds. A trail camera. But expensive. Government expensive. I've disabled 43 trail cameras over the years. Most are easy, cheap consumer models that hunters strap to trees hoping to catch deer. Or me. Usually deer. This one was different. Hardened case. Encrypted wireless signal, I could tell from the frequency pattern, rapid and complex. And it had a secondary sensor I'd never seen before. Acoustic monitoring. They weren't just watching anymore. They were listening. I left it intact. Disabling it would tell them they were close. Better to know where the traps are and avoid them. Over the next week, I found 16 more sensors. All positioned in a rough perimeter around a 12-square-mile section of forest that included my shelter, my primary water sources, and the migration routes I used to avoid human contact. They were building a cage. And they were baiting it. On October 9th, the construction crews arrived. I heard the chainsaws first. Then the generators. Then voices, lots of voices, coordinated and professional. I crept to within 200 yards of the activity and watched from beneath a rotting cedar snag. They were building a research station. Not a cabin. Not a campsite. A full facility, prefabricated buildings airlifted in by heavy-lift helicopters, solar arrays, satellite dishes, a perimeter fence with what looked like electrified wiring at the top. 24 people. Maybe more inside the buildings. Half wore standard outdoor gear, practical, weatherproof, the uniform of field researchers. The others wore something else, tactical clothing. Body armor. Sidearms. Security. A woman in her 40s, hair pulled back, military posture, stood near a large tent reviewing blueprints with two men. She pointed at the surrounding forest, then at the blueprints, then back at the forest. Deliberate. Methodical. She was in charge. One of the security contractors walked the perimeter with a tablet, checking sensor feeds. He stopped, zoomed in on something, then spoke into a radio on his shoulder. Grid 7 is showing false positives. Wind patterns, probably. Increase sensitivity threshold by 15%. They were calibrating for me. I watched for 4 hours. Noted their patterns, their shift changes, the locations of their cameras. Then I withdrew deeper into the forest, moving along a route I knew their sensors couldn't cover, a creek bed with enough white noise to mask acoustic signatures, rocky terrain that doesn't hold footprints. That night, I circled back and found their garbage dump. Humans throw away information like they throw away everything else, carelessly. I waited until 3 a.m., when the facility was quiet except for 2 security guards on patrol, then approached from downwind. The dumpster was industrial-sized, locked with a simple padlock. I've learned to pick those. Useful skill. Inside, food waste, equipment packaging, and, most valuable, discarded paperwork. Someone had thrown away a partial briefing document, coffee-stained and crumpled. I smoothed it out and read by moonlight. Operational brief, Phase 2 Project Cascadia Cryptid Initiative Classification, confidential date, October 1, 2025. Objective, establish Forward Operating Base, FOB, within Target Zone Alpha, 7. Deploy Integrated Sensor Network for detection and tracking of subject-designated entity, PNW 001. Secondary objective, live capture for biological study and verification. Previous attempts, 2019, 2021, 2023, resulted in inconclusive data. New methodology incorporates AI-assisted pattern recognition, multispectrum imaging, and predictive movement modeling. Estimated timeline, 90 days to first verifiable contact. 120 days to capture event. Note, cooperation secured with private defense contractors. Contingency protocols in place for hostile engagement. The rest was torn away. I read it 3 times. Memorizing. Processing. Entity, PNW-001. That was me. Not a legend. Not a myth. A target. And they had 90 days. I returned the document to the dumpster exactly as I'd found it, relatched the lock, and disappeared into the darkness before the guards completed their rotation. 3 attempts already. Persistent little hairless apes. At this rate they'll figure out I exist right around the same time they figure out climate change is real. So, never. The joke felt hollow even in my own head. Because they were close this time. Closer than anyone had ever been. Memory is a strange thing when you live as long as I do. Some moments are sharp, precise, permanent, carved into consciousness like petroglyphs on stone. Others blur together into impressions, feelings, the emotional residue of decades compressed into vague unease. But I remember 1967. October 20th, Bluff Creek, California. Patterson-Gimlin film. That wasn't me. That was Nala. We called her that because she moved like flowing water, smooth, inevitable, beautiful. She was one of the last females. Maybe 40 years old. Strong. Wise. Careful. Not careful enough. Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin were following tracks. Deliberately. Persistently. They'd been searching for weeks, and Nala had been avoiding them the way we avoid all humans, by staying one valley ahead, one ridge over, always out of sight. But that day she made a choice I've never fully understood. She crossed the creek in broad daylight. Maybe she thought they were farther away. Maybe she was tired of running. Maybe, and this haunts me, maybe she wanted to be seen. 59.5 seconds of film. 1 minute of footage that changed everything. I was 17 miles away when it happened. But I felt it in the way the forest changed, a shift in attention, in energy. Like when a tree falls and the space it occupied becomes suddenly, violently empty. 3 days later I found her. She'd retreated to a cave system we'd used before, back when there were 12 of us instead of 3. She was weak. Not injured physically, but diminished. As if being seen had cost her something essential. "They'll come now," she said. Our language doesn't translate perfectly, but the meaning was clear. They'll never stop. She was right. After the film went public, the hunters came in swarms. The forests of the Pacific Northwest became a proving ground for every wannabe cryptozoologist and fortune seeker with a camera. The money changed hands, expeditions, documentaries, books, merchandise. We became an industry. Nala lasted another 11 years. Then one winter she simply stopped. Found a high place. Lay down. Let the cold take her. I buried her myself. It took 3 days to move enough stones to cover her body properly. Traditional. Respectful. The humans never found her remains. They never will. The memory surfaces now as I crouch in the darkness, watching the research facility through a gap in the trees. 23 days since they arrived. The compound is fully operational now. I've counted 37 personnel, researchers, technicians, security contractors. They work in shifts. Round the clock. The lights never fully go out. They've expanded the sensor network. I've mapped 63 cameras and acoustic monitors within my territory. They're using AI now. I can tell from the way the cameras track movement, predicting trajectories, focusing on anomalies. Last week one of them nearly got me. I was moving through a section I thought was clear, following a game trail I'd used for decades. Quiet. Cautious. A camera I hadn't detected swiveled in my direction. Locked on. The lens adjusted, focusing. I froze. Complete stillness. An old trick, the human brain struggles with objects that don't move. Cameras are the same, motion activated, programmed to track change. For 47 seconds I didn't breathe. The camera's LED blinked green. Recording. Processing. Then something triggered nearby, a deer, maybe, or a falling branch, and the camera swiveled away. I melted back into the undergrowth, my heart rate spiking for the first time in years. Too close. They're learning my patterns. Adjusting. Adapting. I'm running out of territory. Recovered document, personal journal, Dr. Sarah Chen, lead researcher. Date, October 28, 2025. Day 19 at FOB Cascadia. Team morale is high despite the cold and isolation. The AI system flagged another anomaly this morning, large bipedal thermal signature, approximately 2.3 meters tall, moving northeast through Sector 4. By the time we reached the location, nothing remained except disturbed vegetation and what might be a footprint, though the soil was too rocky for a clear impression. Jenkins thinks we're chasing shadows. Maybe he's right. Maybe we've built an expensive camp in the middle of nowhere based on grainy folklore and wishful thinking. But the data doesn't lie. Something is here. Something that knows we're here. The pattern analysis shows deliberate avoidance behavior. Whatever's in these woods is actively circumventing our sensors, which requires spatial awareness and learning capability far beyond any known wildlife. Dr. Morrison suggested we're dealing with a remnant population of Gigantopithecus or an unknown subspecies of Homo. Evolutionary dead end that survived in isolated pockets. It's plausible. The fossil record has gaps. These forests have been here for 10,000 years. Tomorrow we're deploying the drone swarm. 50 autonomous units with thermal and optical sensors, coordinated by the AI. They can cover the entire zone in 6 hours. If it's here, we'll find it. I read the journal entry after finding it in her tent. Yes, I went inside their camp. It happened on November 2nd, during a supply delivery. The heavy-lift helicopter created enough noise and distraction that I could approach from the north, using the terrain to mask my movement. I waited until most of the personnel were occupied with unloading cargo, then slipped through a gap in the perimeter fence. Simple. Quiet. Her tent was third from the left. Private quarters for senior staff. I opened the flap, they don't lock anything because they assume they're alone in the wilderness, and stepped inside. Laptop on the desk. Papers scattered. Coffee mug with lipstick on the rim. Photograph pinned to the canvas wall, Dr. Chen with 2 children, maybe 10 and 12 years old, both smiling. Family. She wasn't a monster. None of them are. They're scientists. Curious. Driven. Doing what humans do, trying to understand the unknown. And that's what makes them dangerous. I read through her notes, her journal, the reports. Memorized key details. Then I left everything exactly as I'd found it and exited the camp while they were still arguing about where to stack equipment crates. They never knew I was there. But I knew something new, the drone swarm launches in 3 days. 50 drones. Coordinated by AI. No human error. No fatigue. No distractions. Just algorithm and persistence. The next night I had a visitor. I was in my primary shelter, the cave behind the waterfall, organizing supplies I'd cached over the years. Old habits. Planning for winter. Making sure I had enough stored food, enough backup locations, enough. A sound. Not human. Not quite. I turned slowly, hands ready, and saw him standing at the entrance to the cave. Makir. The last of us. The only other one I know still survives. He's older than me by at least 60 years, maybe more. His hair has gone silver gray around the muzzle and shoulders. He moves slower now, careful with joints that ache in the cold. But his eyes are sharp. We haven't spoken in 14 years. Not since we agreed it was safer to stay separated, to split the territory and minimize the risk of discovery. You've seen them, he said. Not a question. Yes. They're different this time. Yes. He moved deeper into the cave, settling onto a flat rock near the back wall. The waterfall's roar made conversation difficult, but we've always been good at reading body language, at filling in the gaps. I'm leaving, he said finally. Going north. British Columbia. Maybe farther. They'll find you there eventually. Maybe. But not this year. I wanted to argue. Wanted to say we should stay, defend our territory, fight back. But I'm not stupid. When? I asked. Tonight. I came to warn you. To say goodbye. He paused. To say it's been an honor surviving with you. Something caught in my throat. An old emotion I thought I'd buried with Nala. Go, I said. Be careful. He stood. Moved toward the entrance. Then stopped. There's a story the humans tell, he said. About how we're guardians of the forest. Protectors of the wild places. I've heard it. It's not true, you know. We're not guardians. We're refugees. He left before I could respond. I haven't seen him since. Day one of being the last one in a 100-mile radius. On the bright side, no more arguments about who gets the good fishing spots. On the downside, literally everything else. The joke didn't help. The cave felt bigger. Emptier. Lonelier. November 5th, 4:47 a.m. The drones launched just before dawn. I'm watching from a ridge 3/4 of a mile from the compound, concealed beneath a rocky overhang. The sky is that particular shade of gray that comes before sunrise, not quite light, not quite dark. Perfect for machines with thermal sensors. They emerge from the facility in a coordinated swarm, 50 units rising simultaneously like mechanical locusts. Small. Agile. Each one no bigger than a dinner plate, equipped with rotors, cameras, and sensors I can't identify from this distance. They spread out in a predetermined pattern, covering the forest in an expanding grid. Hunting. I have maybe 20 minutes before they reach my position. I move. Not running, running creates heat signatures that thermal cameras love. Instead I use a technique I've perfected over decades, slow, controlled movement that mimics natural forest activity. I stay beneath the canopy where possible, using trees and terrain to break up my heat profile. The creek bed becomes my highway. The water is 42 degrees, cold enough to mask thermal signatures, and the white noise covers sound. I move upstream, heading toward the high country where the forest gives way to alpine terrain. Behind me, I hear the drones spreading out. That high-pitched whine of electric motors. Getting closer. I have contingency plans. 23 locations scattered throughout my territory where I can hide, wait out a search. Caves. Rock formations. Spots where terrain makes aerial detection difficult. But the drones are thorough. By 6:15 a.m. they've passed over 3 of my backup locations. I watch from a distance as they hover, scanning, their cameras tilting and adjusting. The AI is learning the terrain, eliminating possibilities. I'm running out of places to hide. At 7:30 a.m. I make a decision. I have to leave my territory. Everything I've built over 200 years, the cached supplies, the emergency shelters, the carefully mapped routes, all of it becomes obsolete the moment I cross the boundary line into unfamiliar terrain. But staying means capture. And capture means the end of everything. I head east, moving into territory I haven't used in 40 years. The forest is different here, second growth, younger trees, less cover. More human activity. Logging roads. Trail systems. Campgrounds. Dangerous. But the drones don't know this area. Yet. By noon I've put 7 miles between myself and the compound. The drones are still behind me, still searching, but their pattern has become more random. They've lost the scent. I find a hollow beneath a massive fallen cedar and crawl inside. The space is barely large enough for my frame, cramped and dark. But it's concealment. I wait. Hours pass. The forest settles into afternoon rhythms. Birds return. Insects buzz. The normal sounds of life resume. Then, at 3:17 p.m., I hear voices. Human voices. Close. I freeze. Control my breathing. Become stone. 3 hikers emerge from the tree line 30 yards from my position. 2 men, 1 woman. Early 30s. Good gear. Experienced. Telling you, the trail continues north, one of the men says. According to the map, sure, the woman replies. According to reality, that's a cliff. They're arguing about navigation. Not looking for me. Just lost. One of them pulls out a phone. No signal. Of course not. They're in a dead zone, too far from cell towers, too deep in the terrain. We should head back, the second man says. Sun's going to set in a couple hours. The woman nods. Yeah. Let's. She stops. She's looking directly at the hollow where I'm hiding. My heart rate spikes. Every instinct screams at me to move, to run, to. You smell that? She says. The men sniff the air. One wrinkles his nose. Yeah. What is that? Like, wet dog? It's me. My scent. Unavoidable when you're this close. The woman takes a step toward the hollow. Then another. She's curious. Investigating. 10 yards. 5. She reaches the fallen cedar. Peers into the darkness. Our eyes meet. For exactly 2 seconds, neither of us moves. She sees me. All of me. There's no mistaking what I am. Her pupils dilate. Her mouth opens slightly. And then I do something I've never done before. I speak. One word. In English. Quiet. Barely a whisper. Please. Her eyes go wide. The color drains from her face. She stumbles backward, trips over a root, falls hard. The 2 men rush to her side. Emily. What? Run, she gasps. Run. They run. All 3 of them, crashing through the forest like panicked deer. I hear them for a quarter mile, their voices echoing, shouting warnings to each other. I don't follow. I stay in the hollow, processing what just happened. I spoke to a human. Broke 2 centuries of silence. Revealed myself. And for what? To beg? To plead for mercy from creatures that have hunted me my entire existence? The shame is overwhelming. But worse than shame, the certainty of what comes next. Emily will tell people. She'll describe what she saw. The authorities will be notified. The research compound will redirect their resources. They'll find me. Not today. Maybe not tomorrow. But soon. I've made the hunt too easy. November 6th, 2:13 a.m. I'm back near the compound. Watching. The activity level has doubled. More personnel. More vehicles. Emergency floodlights illuminating the perimeter. They know. Emily reported her encounter. The researchers mobilized immediately. I can see them through the fence, studying maps, plotting coordinates, deploying additional drones. Dr. Chen stands in the center of it all, directing operations with military precision. She's holding a tablet, reviewing footage. Thermal data. AI analysis. She's close. I could leave. Should leave. Put 100 miles between myself and this place. But something keeps me here. Maybe it's pride. Maybe it's exhaustion. Maybe it's the simple fact that I'm tired of running. Or maybe, and this is the thought that's been growing in my mind for days, maybe I'm ready to let them catch me. Not because I want to be studied, dissected, displayed in some laboratory. But because I want them to understand. I want one human being to look me in the eyes and see not a monster, not a cryptid, not a entity PNW 001. But a person. Someone who feels. Who thinks. Who has spent 200 years hiding not from fear, but from the certainty that humanity will destroy what it doesn't understand. The floodlights sweep across the forest. Voices crackle over radios. Engines start. They're coming. And this time, I'm not going to run. I'm going to let them find me. On my terms. The confrontation happens at dawn. I've positioned myself in a clearing 2 miles northeast of the compound. Visible. Obvious. Standing upright in a patch of open ground where the morning sun cuts through the trees and illuminates everything. I've left a trail. Broken branches. Footprints in soft earth. Marks that even amateur trackers could follow. Come and find me. The first team arrives at 6:42 a.m. 6 people. 4 security contractors in tactical gear, 2 researchers with tranquilizer rifles. They move cautiously, professionally. Scanning the tree line. Communicating through hand signals. They see me. All of them freeze. One of the researchers, a young man, maybe 28, with the kind of excited terror that comes from encountering something that rewrites your understanding of reality, raises his tranquilizer rifle with shaking hands. "Don't shoot," Dr. Chen's voice crackles over his radio. She's behind them, approaching slowly. Nobody shoots. We observe. Document. We do not engage unless threatened. She steps into the clearing. We're 40 feet apart. Close enough to see details. Close enough for her to understand that I'm not an animal. I meet her eyes. She meets mine. "My God," she whispers. "You're real." I nod. Slowly. Deliberately. Her scientific training takes over. She pulls out a camera, starts recording. Her hands are steady now, focused. "Can you understand me?" she asks. I nod again. Her breath catches. Can you speak?" This is the moment. The decision point. 200 years of silence ending with a single word. But I don't speak. Because something's wrong. The security contractors have fanned out. Surrounding me. Their weapons aren't tranquilizer rifles, they're real firearms, safety's off, fingers near triggers. This isn't observation. This is containment. Dr. Chen sees my posture change, sees me recognize the trap. Her expression shifts, confusion, then understanding, then horror. "Wait," she says, turning to the contractors. "What are you?" "Step back, doctor," one of them says. His voice is flat. Professional. He's not here for science. No. This isn't the protocol. We agreed. Protocol changed. Orders from the top. Live capture if possible. Termination if it becomes hostile. Termination. The word hangs in the air like smoke. Dr. Chen's face goes pale. You can't. This is a historic discovery. A living. Step. Back. She doesn't move. I won't let you kill it. It's not your decision, ma'am. The contractor raises his rifle. Not at me. At her. The others shift position, weapons ready. And I understand, this was never about science. This was always about elimination. About erasing a problem before it becomes a problem. About making sure the thing in the woods stays in the woods. Dead. Silent. Gone. Dr. Chen sees it too. She's shaking, but she doesn't move. She stands between me and the guns. I said step back, the contractor repeats. No. Time fractures. Slows. I could run. Could fight. Could disappear into the forest and let them shoot at shadows. But Dr. Chen would die. This woman who came here seeking truth, who believed in discovery over destruction, who's now standing between me and death. I make my choice. I charge. Not at the contractors. At the tree line. 40 feet of open ground covered in less than 3 seconds. Faster than they can track. Faster than they can shoot. Gunfire erupts behind me. Bullets tear through branches. One grazes my shoulder, hot, sharp, irrelevant. I'm into the forest. Into the thick undergrowth where vehicles can't follow and humans move at 1/10 my speed. Dr. Chen is shouting. Cease fire. Cease fire. More gunfire. They're not aiming anymore. Just shooting. Panic fire. Amateur hour. I'm gone before they can organize pursuit. I run for 11 miles. Not stopping. Not slowing. Pushing through the pain in my shoulder where the bullet tore through muscle and fat but missed bone. By noon I'm deep in territory I haven't used in decades. Old-growth forest so dense the sunlight barely penetrates. No trails. No cameras. No humans. Safe. Temporarily. I find a hollow in a rock formation and collapse inside, breathing hard, bleeding slowly. The wound isn't fatal but it needs attention. I've treated injuries before. Learned field medicine by watching humans, by stealing supplies from abandoned camps, by trial and error over 2 centuries. I pack the wound with moss, sphagnum, specifically, which has antiseptic properties. Then I wrap it with strips of bark. Not ideal. But functional. The pain is manageable. I've had worse. The betrayal is not. I thought, stupidly, naively, that showing myself might change something. That one human might see me as something other than a target or a trophy. Dr. Chen did. For exactly 40 seconds. Then the reality of institutional power overrode individual conscience. They'll keep hunting. They'll always keep hunting. Because that's what humans do. Recovered audio log, Dr. Sarah Chen, date, November 6, 2025. Time, 14:37. Sound of rain. Heavy breathing. This is Dr. Sarah Chen, lead researcher for Project Cascadia. This is my personal log. Not for official record. Long pause. They tried to kill it. Not capture. Kill. The contractors had orders I wasn't informed about. Orders that came from. I don't even know. Someone above my clearance level. When I objected, they threatened me. Put a gun in my face and told me to stand down. The creature saved my life. It ran instead of fighting. Instead of killing every one of us, which it could have done. I saw its eyes. It understood. It knew what was happening. It was afraid. This project is over. I'm submitting my resignation tonight. I don't care about the NDA. I don't care about the consequences. This isn't science. This is genocide. And I won't be part of it. 3 weeks pass. The compound shuts down. I watch from a distance as they dismantle the buildings, pack the equipment, airlift everything out. By November 28, the site is empty except for concrete pads and disturbed earth. They're not coming back. Not because they gave up. Because they succeeded. They confirmed I exist. They got footage, data, proof. Classified proof, but proof nonetheless. Now it's just a matter of time before another team arrives. Better funded. Better equipped. Without idealistic scientists who might object to murder. Dr. Chen was fired. I know because I found her final report in the abandoned facility. She left it in plain sight, printed and stapled, titled, Ethical Violations and Recommended Termination of Project Cascadia. She tried. It didn't matter. But I keep the report anyway. Physical proof that at least one human cared. My shoulder heals slowly over the following weeks. The wound closes. Muscle regenerates. By mid-December I'm back to full mobility. But the forest has changed. Or maybe I've changed. I notice things I ignored before, the expansion of human infrastructure, the shrinking of wilderness, the increasing frequency of helicopter overflights. Even in the remotest areas, there's evidence of human activity. Trash. Trail markers. Satellite tags on wildlife. Nowhere is truly isolated anymore. I spend Christmas Eve, not that the date means anything to me, but I've learned your calendar, sitting on a ridge watching the distant glow of a town 20 miles south. Lights twinkling. Families gathering. The whole elaborate ritual of human connection. I've never had that. We didn't celebrate. We didn't mark time with holidays or birthdays. We just existed. Surviving day to day, generation to generation, until there were too few of us to call it a species anymore. Just remnants. Echoes. Ghosts of something that almost was. Day 53 of being shot at. Still not used to it. Still not dead. Modern medicine would call that a success. I call it Tuesday. The humor feels forced. Empty. Because the truth is harder than any bullet. I'm not sure how much longer I want to do this. Not dying. Just hiding. January 14, 2026. I find something that changes everything. I'm scouting new territory 50 miles north of my usual range, looking for locations to cache supplies, when I discover tracks. Not human. Not deer. Not bear. Ours. Fresh. Maybe 3 days old. Larger than mine. Moving north. Makir. I follow the tracks for 2 days, moving carefully, checking my back trail, making sure I'm not leading anyone to him. On the 3rd day I find him. He's made camp in a cave system similar to mine, hidden, defensible, with multiple exits. He's thinner than when I saw him last. Older. More tired. But alive. You came, he says when I appear at the entrance. You left tracks. I meant to. We sit in silence for a long time. The cave is cold but dry. Outside, snow falls in thick, heavy flakes. I heard what happened, he says finally. The confrontation. The shooting. How? Ham radio. Hunters talking. They're excited. They think someone finally got proof. They did. But you're still alive. For now. He nods slowly. I've been thinking about something. About why we hide. About what we're preserving. Our lives. Is that enough? He looks at me with those ancient eyes. We're not living. We're surviving. There's a difference. What are you saying? I'm saying maybe it's time to stop hiding. Not to let them catch us. But to choose our own terms. To leave something behind that says, we were here. We mattered. We were real. I want to argue. Want to say that survival is enough, that staying hidden is the only victory available to us. But I can't. Because he's right. What's the point of surviving if no one knows you existed? If you become nothing but blurry photographs and disputed legends? If your entire existence is reduced to a cultural punchline? We spend the next week talking. Planning. Making decisions I never thought I'd make. And when we're done, I return to my territory with a new purpose. Not hiding anymore. Leaving evidence. Testimony. This recording. This will be my last entry. I've hidden this recorder in a location that will be found eventually. Not immediately. Not by accident. But by someone looking in the right places, asking the right questions. Someone like Dr. Chen. I've included coordinates, carved into the back of the recorder in binary code, which I learned from that laptop. They lead to 3 locations where I've left evidence: clear footprints in protected mud, preserved under layers of resin I made from tree sap. Hair samples, carefully stored. Photographs I took using a camera I found at an abandoned campsite, pictures of me, Makir, and others from decades past. Proof. Real proof. Not blurry. Not disputed. Undeniable. But you'll have to work for it. Have to care enough to look. Because here's what I've learned after 217 years of hiding. Humans fear what they don't understand. But they can also love what they take time to know. You've spent decades hunting me. Maybe it's time you started listening instead. I am not a monster. I am not a missing link. I am not a myth. I am a person who has watched your species expand and consume and destroy the wild places where my kind existed for millennia. I have seen the forests fall. I have seen the rivers poisoned. I have seen creatures with whom I shared this world go extinct while you debated whether they deserved protection. I have watched you worship progress while calling it civilization. And still, despite everything, I do not hate you. I pity you. Because you have built a world where there's no room left for mystery. Where everything must be captured, classified, commodified. Where the unknown is not something to wonder at, but something to eliminate. You will find this recording. You will follow my coordinates. You will discover proof that I existed. And then you will hunt me with renewed purpose. Justification. Scientific necessity. I know this. I accept this. Because at least when you finally catch me, and you will, eventually, at least then you'll know what you destroyed. Not a legend. A person. Someone who loved the forests you clear-cut. Who valued the silence you filled with noise. Who represented a path your species didn't take, and maybe should have. My name doesn't matter. Names are human constructs. But I existed. Remember that. When you're studying my DNA in some laboratory, when you're writing papers about morphology and taxonomy and evolutionary dead ends, when you're putting my remains in a museum next to dodo birds and passenger pigeons and all the other things you made extinct. Remember that I was here first. This was my home before it was your weekend hiking destination. This was my world before you decided to conquer it. And when the last of us is gone, and we will be gone soon, remember that you had a choice. You could have left us alone. You didn't. So I'm leaving you this. My testimony. My truth. My voice. For whatever it's worth. To whoever finds this, the coordinates are written on the back. Follow them carefully. Tell Dr. Chen I don't blame her. And if you're going to hunt us, at least have the decency to know what you're hunting. We were never the monsters in this story. Final note, recovered with recording device. This device was found on March 15, 2026, by Dr. Sarah Chen and independent researcher Marcus Webb, following coordinates discovered during review of Project Cascadia documentation. The 3 cache sites referenced in the recording have been located and authenticated. Evidence is currently under analysis at an undisclosed facility. No further contact with entity PNW-001 has been documented. The search continues. In the deepest parts of the forest, where humans rarely venture, there are places where the trees grow differently. Where the earth holds impressions that shouldn't exist. Where, if you're very quiet and very patient, you might hear something that sounds almost like language. Almost like a voice. Almost like goodbye. But the forest keeps its secrets. And some mysteries are never meant to be solved. They're meant to haunt you.